All right, please do me a favor. If you haven't already subscribed to the show on YouTube, go over to youtube.com at The Big Truth Podcast. I got a new channel up. I've been revamping it over the last couple of weeks. So it's still in progress, but it's leagues beyond what it used to be. I slept on YouTube for so long, and now I'm getting everything shaped up. So give a follow over there at The Big Truth Podcast over on YouTube. That'll help me get this show going and growing over there. If you haven't seen the new Big Truth Redacted Instagram, go over to that and subscribe to that as well. Just Instagram at Big Truth Redacted. If you happen to need some artwork for whatever, for your business, your house, your garage, your tattoo shop, your work, wherever, go to tattooflashcollective.com. They got you covered. Whether you need a postcard size piece of art or a full huge poster, anything in between. Now, if you need Tattoo Flash, obviously these dudes got you super covered, super on lock. But they have books. They have all kinds of artwork and books and art related things, all designed by tattoo artists from around the world, top tier artists. And it's a collective. So the profits are split, like, you know what I mean? Like, these artists are getting paid. They're not getting ripped off. It's not some corporate stuff. It's, ground up by tattoo artists, for tattoo artists, and for the world, anyone who appreciates art. So check them out, tattooflashcollective.com. If you use the promo code BigTruth at checkout, you get 10% off your order. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you get even more off your order. And if you want to find out what that code is, join Patreon, patreon.com/BigTruth. That's another way for you to support the show. If this content's free, but if you like it and you want to help support the show, keep it going and growing, and you want to contribute more, go over to Patreon. It'll help me out greatly. And it's a way for you to get more involved in the show. We do a lot of, you get the shows, before they come out. So you get advanced notice and advanced copies of the show. There's giveaways there, exclusive just to Patreon subscribers, exclusive content, and all kinds of things. And it's a way for you to chime in, and there's a good community there, good group of people. All my aces are on the Patreon. So check it out, patreon.com/BigTruth. If you are into motorcycles or punk rock or hardcore choppers or weird stuff, then you probably like my motorcycle shop. Even if you don't ride bikes, check it out, choppahead.com, CHOPPAHEAD. If you're not local, right? Just go to the website. You can get swag there. You can get motorcycle parts, apparel, all kinds of stuff, but shop swag, t-shirts, hoodies, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you are local, we're a full brick and mortar motorcycle shop. That means you come here. This isn't a warehouse. We're not shipping. We're not like Amazon affiliates, some stuff like that. You come in and we're a full old school motorcycle shop. We got a showroom and a parts counter in the front, an area with like riding gear and apparel. And then in the back, it's a full service shop. So whether you need an oil change or a full custom bike built, we got you. Whatever you need. Any year Harley we work on. We got a 41 back there, and we got a 2024 back there right now that we're doing stuff too. So check it out, choppahead.com. For more information on the podcast, just go to bigtruthpodcast.com. And also, if you want some show swag, go to bigtruthpodcast.com/shop, or hit the shop link at the top of the page there. And we got some cool designs up there, and it's a merch company I'm working with, so they can print it on all kinds of stuff. So you want a t-shirt, hoodie, tank top, pillowcase, wild stuff. So check that out, bigtruthpodcast.com. So my guest today is my man Christian, who I've been working with for a few months now on a health journey. Right. This one's going to be geared to the new year, new me people, or just people that are interested in knowing the real deal with health and getting through the conspiracies and the bull of some of the stuff that involved in our medical system, and cutting through that and getting to the heart of the matter. So this is going to be a good one, going to be a heavy one, going to be a deep one. So without further ado, we're going to jump into it right now.
Frequency We have a liftoff.
Yes, once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And I'm stoked to have my man, Christian Yordanov, here with me today. He's a functional health practitioner, and he's the guy I've been working with for the last few months. I know you, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen some updates here and there. I've been loath to give any full updates until I'm kind of a little further along in the course, but I can tell you progress has been fucking great. Feel better than I ever have in a long time, and dropping weight and making gains and killing it because of my boy here, Christian. What's up, man? I know you're in Europe.
Hey, bro.
I'm looking here at the snow and everything, and you're probably on a nice sunny day are you on the coast in Portugal?
I'm on the coast. Yeah, it's pretty cold, but for Portugal standards, it's cold. But like you'd probably laugh. It's I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty mild. Yeah.
So Christian is an author, a functional health practitioner, a researcher, a podcaster, and you know, he offers a program that helps people get healthy and live longer. I mean, really. So, you know, why don't you give people a little bit of background on yourself and where they can find you and everything, and then we'll just jump into it, because I know we got a call coming up in like an hour or so.
Yeah.
Let's just get down, bud. Let's just get down.
Yeah. Would love to. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a great pleasure. So just the short story is basically in my kind of late teens and all throughout my 20s, I was just really just living terribly, like smoking, drinking, drugs, just looking to party, like zero sort of self-responsibility. And just about when I hit 30, then I met my now wife at the time, which is about 10 years ago now at this point. And she had a lot of health problems in that first year that we were together. She was put on antibiotics 4 times. She developed, thrush, and they put her on birth control for that. So I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, these people are like monkeys could probably do a better job helping her out, And at the same time, my grandmother was in her last kind of years, and all the suffering, like in the last 5, especially 5 years of her life, but just the last couple of decades of her life was just pure pain, suffering, torture, operations, drugs, and just really, I saw how horrible her quality of life was. So I just got a little bit of a wake-up call at that time. I'm like, hot diggity, like if I don't get my shit together, I won't even last to my 80s. Like I'll probably like 50 and I'll be like deteriorating, So that's when I really started to kind of get onto the health piece, and it just very quickly turned into an obsession. And then I very quickly found out why I was always throughout my life fleeting from subject to different subjects. I had a lot of different interests, but I never stuck with anything. It's because I hadn't found my calling yet. And I at that point, that's when I realized, this is actually, not only do I have to do this for me professionally so that I can stay on the straight and narrow, but I need to pay it forward, what I've learned. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey getting to work with, guys like you. It's especially guys and gals from the truth community, the freedom community, because these are my favorite people to support because these are the people I want to be as healthy as possible. You
need these people around for when something goes down.
I need these people to be really feeling well and healthy. And
I feel like it's getting crazier by the day out there. But so you kind of you got into things almost out of necessity, like, you know what I mean? Like you had some health stuff going on. Your girlfriend or fiance, or your girl at the time, but before you were married.
Yeah, we just met there. Yeah,
and then and family and stuff. How did you go about? So many people are just caught in the grind of like, you go to your primary care and and then they just refer you to a specialist and you get on meds and you do this. Like, how did you break out of that cycle, and like, where did you start looking for information, or how did you get into like, I might be jumping around here. Then like, how did you go from doing your own research to getting into like becoming a full functional health, practitioner
Yeah.
and coach, or mentor or whatever word you want to say, or teacher,
Yeah. So the first thing I did, of course, as I'm sure most most of the listeners would do, is like I started listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
I had just discovered podcasting at the time, and the unfortunate thing there is the big sort of the big dogs that many of us, you're either you're mainstream or your next avenue is the alternative mainstream, which is still, in hindsight, now that I know what I know, it's still pretty like it's pretty bad. I have to say, just so I started listening to like biohacking podcasts, and at the time, it was already all the rage was keto and fasting,
Yeah.
and autophagy was kind of the big buzzword. They had just kind of in 20 that was 2018. So back in 2016, they had actually awarded the Nobel Prize to some Japanese researcher that had kind of elucidated some of these autophagy sort of mechanisms in the cells. And so yeah, that's what I started listening. Like, and man, when I get into something like this, is like and my wife kind of realized that when I get into something, it's intense too. Like I was like literally 10-12 hours a day podcasts, and of course books and all sorts of stuff. And so I started taking supplements galore, dude. I was taking like supplements because I was always like into supplements back when I was back in my 20s. I would train, go to the gym, Thai boxing. I did like a personal training sort of qualification back in like almost 20 years ago. So I was always like taking supplements. I was like, I love pills, dude. I like whether it's ecstasies and kind of little powders and stuff, or it's like supplements. It was just another way for me to kind of throw stuff into my body, and then as I started doing that, then I started doing lab testing on myself, and I got deeper and deeper into it. That's when I discovered some kind of guys like Paul Chek, functional diagnostic nutrition. So that's when I kind of like, well, hell, I love courses. Even though I was like living pretty rough, I always like enjoyed like reading and kind of educating myself and doing courses. So I was like started doing these courses, and that's kind of how it started happening. And as my wife's health improved, as my health improved, that's when I kind of realized, this could turn into something. Then I remember back in 2019, that's when I kind of finished my functional diagnostic nutrition course, where they taught us how to use lab testing in a clinical setting. And when the day I graduated, the day I kind of did my final exam, I remember I immediately got those guys to order a stool test for my mother, who had been suffering with IBS for about 13 years up to that point. So from 2017 to about 2019. And I already knew, I kind of had a feeling what she has. I thought she had H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori. And we did that test, and I was correct in my sort of, assumption. And I helped her basically in a few months. She started like, it was rough. It was hard because, she was, in her like almost 60, but she got to the point. So first she would like writhe, she would eat some food and she'd like writhe in pain, holding her stomach, or she'd have headaches pretty much after every single meal. That's kind of the stage she was in. It was horrific. 8 months later, when COVID hit in March 2020, she basically could eat raw garlic without any, discomfort. So that's where we got her. And kind of that was like one of the sort of the first instances where I helped someone other than myself. And during that time, I was also writing my book on autism, which I published in March 2020. And I started working more with families, with kids on the spectrum. Then I started helping the moms because they needed more help than the kids in many cases. And that's gradually how it kind of, and now here we are.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's crazy, man, because I see it. I don't know if it's because I follow you, and I get stuff every day now for like functional health, like trainings and this and that. And I feel like it's something that's emerging, which can also be dangerous, because if people get into it and they're not as obsessed with it as you, then it could, I don't know if, there's different levels of quality of people, you know what I mean? Like, you, like you said, you get obsessed with stuff and you're like putting 10, 12 hours in a day of reading and absorbing material. Never mind just your coursework, just like outside of that. And you mentioned Paul Chek. That dude's a beast. Paul Chek is a beast. That,
Yeah.
like I used to
Yeah.
I followed him before I knew about you. But for people that might not kind of understand, let's dial it back, because like for some people this is going to be the first time they've heard of like functional medicine or functional health. Why don't we just talk a little bit about what that is and what it compromises and how it differs from what the care you might get just going to a regular primary care. Because what I'll say is, when I started training with you, like literally you spent more time with me in the first 2 weeks we knew each other than the last 15 years of dealing with like my primary cares. Like they give you like 15 minutes and it's in and out, ba-bang, ba-bang. Unless there's like a big issue, like you go so in depth and so deep, and with the testing and all that stuff. So why don't we just kind of give like a rundown on what this is and how it might differ from, the care people are used to getting, and what the benefits of everything is.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call that care, even.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I sometimes I want to call it not health care, but a disease don't care, basically, because it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's actually more just pharmaceutical dependency management. You know what I mean? Let's keep you on this stuff for as long as we
Make
can.
sure the dose is right. Add more stuff.
And it's like, okay, and let's give you some more side effects so we can give you some more stuff to deal with those side effects.
Exactly.
I
keep in mind, like, so.
Oh, go ahead. It's just crazy to me. Like, if at this point, because so many people, like, and especially in a post-COVID world, if you don't see that pharmaceutical companies have no incentive whatsoever to get you healthy, they want to keep you as a customer for as long as they can. And if you're healthy, you're not a customer. Like, it's like you got to pull your head out of the sand with this. You know what I mean? And have a healthy skepticism. I'm not saying that everything that pharmaceutical companies do is bad, but for by and large, man, like you got to go in it with some skepticism and distrust. You know what I mean? And question.
Yeah, and I actually my background on my computer, I just kind of minimize all the windows just to see it. It's called the Healing Web. This is like very interesting, sort of with the connections between. On the left side is all the allopathic treat the symptoms, all the natural sort of therapies, many of which are like poo-pooed or suppressed. But there was a great quote kind of near. On the left side, on the allopathic side, it says, the nature of capitalism creates a fundamental predicament for Western doctors. A patient cured is a customer lost. And really, you can apply that to the pharmaceutical companies, because I'm sure there's lots of doctors, even though they're like basically, and I don't mean this in a insulting way, I mean retarded in the medical sense. They've been their education has been retarded through the pharma companies sort of just perverting the whole thing. So there's lots of doctors that want to help you. They're like, I tell you, man, there's like some doctors where they see the same patient so often and nothing works. They just like next prescription that they're probably like saying a prayer to their deity. I hope I never see this person again. Maybe something magical happens with this particular drug, but just completely, they're sort of again, like, I don't mean it in a negative way, but they've clipped their wings from day one in the, in medical school, which kind of, that little sort of tirade basically made me forget your question.
Oh, just more like, get into basics of like what
functional. Functional. Oh yeah. So I love sort of the analogy. If you have a gut problem, let's say, I have some clients that have have been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. So IBD, IBS, those are like some of the main things you're going to get diagnosed with if you go to the doctor with a gut problem. And usually when you go to the doctor, the first thing they do is they do scans, and they might maybe do a colonoscopy. If it's more like GERD, like a reflux, they might do like a endoscopy, and like just like sticking things in your orifices, scanning you, irradiating you. And if they don't find anything structurally, then they can say it's a functional disorder. So it's so the structure looks fine, and they're happy with that, nothing is broken or protruding or whatever. So really, that's kind of a lot of the time, at least until recent years, that's where sort of Western medicine ends. Like, there's nothing we can do. We can't operate. We can't cut anything out, and the drugs don't seem to be working. And they will try drugs, of course. So they stop there. So functional medicine, natural medicine, they look more to improve the function of whatever system we're talking about. And it's not necessarily, but usually if it's done right, we're looking to not just make the symptom sort of go away for a while and suppress it, but we want to address whatever's causing the symptoms. So I like, I've showed you back before we even started working together, the functional medicine tree. So in the tree, in the leaves, you can imagine any symptom. So the trees, in sort of the literal sense, the leaves may be yellow, they may be withering, falling off. So that's not like no one is foolish enough to say, I need to go out there with a can of spray paint those leaves green back and kind of sticky tape them back on. That's treating the symptom. So we know instinctively, we know that there's something wrong with the tree. Does it get enough minerals, or maybe too much water, not enough water? So there could be many reasons. So we start looking at the soil, testing the soil, and that's sort of an analogy for the functional paradigm where and you don't have to be a doctor to do this, because again, like, it's not like doctors treat symptoms and they diagnose disease. You don't even have to classify what a person has. And I've worked with plenty of clients where, just as an example, one lady, they diagnosed her with 3 different things. 2 of them that I remember one of them was ankylosing spondylitis, dude, and rheumatoid arthritis. And then we did that metabolomics test, the urine test, and one of the toxic metals on the test was off the charts, 10 times above the top of the range, gadolinium. So I looked up kind of what are symptoms of gadolinium toxicity sources, and it turns out that a lot of the symptoms of toxicity of that toxic metal are very similar to like rheumatic pain, joint pain, various things that can be diagnosed as, ankylosing spondylitis and a bunch of other kind of things. So I told her, I don't think, and she had done like 3 stool tests that were not super indicative of like real serious dysbiosis. So I thought, I don't think this is because of your gut, because of evidence that we already have. And so things like that. But then when you look at what's the source of the metal, right? And then when you look at it, it's actually the dye they inject into you before an MRI. And lo and behold, she had several MRIs in prior years. And apparently that stuff the gadolinium gets stored in the bones, and it kind of leaches out over time. So like, this is not a rheumatoid arthritis the way even the functional sort of, because like doctors think it's genetic, you just take drugs and you stop eating meat. That's kind of rheumatologists would say that. Functional folks will say it's probably gut related, but in this case it was not neither of those things, and so a little bit of investigation, root causes, gut stuff, like I said, metabolomics, they can really find a lot of different things that are at the root cause of those symptoms, those health problems, which could be like, as you know, inflammation, oxidative stress, could be gut issues, deficiencies, toxicity, a lot of stress, which leads to a lot of other kind of imbalances in the body. So we look to identify the person's stress, all those kind of factors I just listed, and then start addressing them systematically. And then the body naturally restores function when given what it needs and when obstacles to health are removed, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and that's to say, like, when I started with you, we did the metabolomics test, and what's the other one called? The blood one?
The food sensitivity?
Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, that yielded so much data that I'm like, why? I don't understand why that's not part of anybody's routine primary care, because it's like, that shows you, those are the numbers, like, based on your blood and your urine. Like, there it is. There's what you got too much of. This is what you got not enough of. You know what I mean? Like, to put it in simple terms for people, it's like, it's wild how much data that went through. And then working with someone like you, where you like compile it and put it into a whole protocol for you and how to incorporate this into your life and everything was, and I'm not saying all this because I know there's someone right now going, oh, this dude's doing a sales pitch. I'm like, no, this dude changed my life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been working together 4 months. I like feel better. I have less stress, even though I'm one of the most stressed people in the world. My stress is down. It's not down all the way because my situation is that I'm working 7 days a week, running multiple businesses, and it's like bad economy. So everything's down and, whatever. So, whatever, this stuff you don't deal with, but dealing with it way better. down 50 pounds pretty much, you know what I mean? Like given the day, like between 47 and 51 pounds, because I can fluctuate 2 or 3 pounds, every, if I weigh myself two or three times a week, so, there's like a 2 or 3 pound fluctuation, not
Sure.
and so, this is serious stuff.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have to say, and I'm not like kind of blowing smoke up your ass here, but like I was when you came to me, when you told me how busy you are and everything, I was like, okay, I hope he does at least half of what I tell him. But you did, dude, you did everything, and I have to really sort of pay my respects, because like I have people that do half as much as you do or less in terms of like busyness and stuff, that do way less. So the fact that you actually went and you did everything, and it doesn't even have to be perfect, as you know, like I don't expect anyone to be perfect, especially around Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff, but like the fact that you did it, man, like from the get-go, I was like, man, this guy, I just had a good feeling about how it's gonna unfold, so.
No, I appreciate it, but it's literally like I had told you from the beginning, like I had already started before I reached out to you, like, and so I wanted to make sure that I was in a headspace, like, because I've been thinking about things for years, and like I finally was in a place where like, yeah, I got to do this, you know what I mean? Or I don't want to be the 50-something-year-old who has a heart attack, you know what I mean? Like because of stress, or a freaking stroke or something. So I was like, I gotta do this just to function. And I noticed I was just being really stabby and like just aggro with people in my life, and like no one wants to deal with that, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I gotta and not to say I'm like Mr. Sunshine, nowadays, but you know what I mean? I'm definitely a lot better, you know what I mean? I'm not there. It's still a goal, but like just the changes right off the rip, even the simple things, like because of my shoulder stuff, man, that Magnoil changed my life, dude. Like there's days where I don't even feel shoulder pain at all. I still don't have all the mobility that I need, but I know, I got to do a little more PT type stuff with that, or mobility stuff, which I do. I don't do heavy shoulder stuff at the gym anymore. I do more like, more mobility stuff. But like everything I learned, like, it's just like, it's helped me so much that like people got to know about this stuff. Like, cause if it helps me, it works for anybody, cause it's common sense stuff and it's not hard. You know what I mean? Like, because what I liked about dealing with you too. And we're still I'm still dealing with it. It was just like, there's so much out there. We're in a world right now where we're so inundated with information, and we're inundated with misinformation. We're inundated with just like wacky like programs, like, and and like you said, like, keto and fasting, like were the things, that were big when you first, they're still big, you know what I mean? And still
they're bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Or bigger. And everything you've said has been like pretty much, it's more than common sense, but like, it's like almost just getting back to basic stuff, man. Like, like here, this is what you don't need. And this is unfortunately what you don't need makes up about 70% of the food supply. Like just go basic, man, like, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting off on a little weird tangent here too, but yeah, man. So, to get back into it, man, like, why don't you, kind of, what are some of the biggest things that, we're in January, right? And January is always the new year, new me. I've noticed a bunch of new faces at the gym. I don't see it the first week. I see it like the second, third week of January it starts. So we've been planning this podcast for a while, but this was a strategic placement of when it comes out, because there's a lot of people in the new year, new me crowd, which is fine, cool. Yeah. Anytime you want to make a change for the better is a good time to make a change. But like, why don't I don't know, like what are some of the main misconceptions people have about health, and like what are some of the main things people can do? Like, obviously going to the gym is just one component. I've been going to the gym for years, man, for years and years, and until I got diet dialed in, or I'm not going to say it's 100% dialed in, but more dialed in, that's when I started noticing the big things, plus the supplementation that the supplementation that you put, man. I'm just going to show you. This is my old man. This is my breakfast, lunch, and dinner supplements. And I loved how you reframed it for me, because I was like, dude, I feel like such an old man with this. And you're like, no, it's called biohacking. And I was like, all right, cool.
All the biohacker CEOs are doing that. But I bought one of those, man. And in the end, some years later, I threw it out because I could never fit all my days or even that meals, pills in there. So like, this is useless. Like these old age pensioners they're not taking enough drugs. That's what, like, if I was a pharmaceutical sort of executive, like, these people need bigger containers because they're not taking enough drugs,
Yeah, yeah.
But uh yeah, that's the thing, dude. That's the thing, like, I think a lot of guys, they think they equate fitness and health, but it's not called fitness health. It's called health and fitness. They're different things. So you can actually be very metabolically healthy, and be pretty unfit. You can be quite unfit. Likewise, you can actually be extremely fit, and you could be like days, weeks, months, years, like a few years from a heart attack, a stroke, and we've had plenty of athletes kind of just perish way too early. Especially, it's more like the endurance style. That's the thing. Endurance exercise, things like, especially like a lot of running, like marathon type running, that's probably one of the worst things you can do to your body. um but even if you don't, even if it's just like gym stuff, I think just because of someone is going to the gym does not mean that they're actually healthy. You could be like jacked, and you can be pretty damn swole and strong and actually feel pretty good, but that doesn't mean that metabolically things are okay. Because like, the thing is, like, by the time you notice let's say by the time your tree leaves are yellow, that didn't happen just now. Whatever caused that problem, it could have happened, it could have started happening days, weeks, months. And with humans, when you have a symptom occur that you feel that you can kind of go and get diagnosed by the doctor as having a disease, that sometimes literally it's been decades in the making. So for example, a stroke, atherosclerosis, cancer, in some cases at least, it's decades in the making. And it's at least years. And with many, if not most symptoms, it's at least weeks to months something has been going on. So we always have to, like, and you said it well, it's really, diet is the number one thing. But also we have to supplement in the modern world, because for many reasons that, of course, we could discuss that for like hours, why supplementation is important. But if you can dial in those two things, so really that helps a lot. Because when you improve diet, I think what people just kind of forget is how deep and nuanced this whole thing is. So when you improve diet, well, what are you doing? Well, yes, you are giving your body more nutrition, which means it can do more things. If you had deficiencies, you're addressing those deficiencies. But at the same time, when you improve the diet, you're actually adding less poison. So pesticides, herbicides, chemicals, emulsifiers. I mean, just like literally, there's like at least 2,500 chemicals that are kind of have been okayed to be used in the food supply, at least that we know about. That have been kind of classified, grass generally regarded as safe and whatnot. So you're adding less poison. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you add less poison, like pesticides and kind of stuff like that, and metals and whatnot, well, that means that less of the other nutrition that you've added it has to be diverted to deal with the poisons and the toxins. So that means more is left over for repair and regeneration. So I think that a lot of people, they really underestimate what truly cleaning up the diet means. And by that, I mean not just going organic, grass-fed, but I think, as you know, I think a lot of people, it's a part of our conditioning is since I was a little kid, dude, I'm sure you're probably similar, and most of the listeners, since we were little kids, what did we, when we were eating with our folks at the table, what did they say? You gotta eat your vegetables. You gotta get. That's where the nutrition is, and that's the biggest load of horse shit ever, dude. Like, because when you think about it, sometimes like I just want to kind of pull it back to the bare essentials. Like, what are we? We are, eternal consciousness, all that good stuff. But like at the physical level, what are we? Well, we're physical. We're mammals. We're warm-blooded. We're made of these tissues, whatever. So what's the purpose of eating beyond the more esoteric sort of getting energy and whatever? The purpose of eating food is to sort of break it down, digest it, absorb it, and then assimilate it into the body. So when you think about it, what's the most compatible with a human mammal that's 98.6 whatever degrees Fahrenheit? Is it maybe another mammal? Is it animal products that kind of were designed, like let's say milk was designed to help an animal grow, or is it fibrous plant cells, cellulose, tissue, fiber, things that are indigestible to the body, that were designed to optimize a plant and its metabolism and life. So when you kind of think about it, it's probably the former, not the latter. And that is where we've been brainwashed by the science. Just the whole that word phytonutrients is in and of itself is a scam, because a lot of what's in the plants, so phyto means plant, nutrient, obviously everybody knows. Nutrient means something that's required for life, not chemical. Is a chemical. It can be required for life, but might not be. It could be harmful. So when they mislabel phytochemicals as phytonutrients, they are subtly brainwashing us that I need those nutrients in my body. But when you think about it, most of in that, like again, just look at a tomato or I don't know, cucumber. Most of what's in there is going to be water. It's going to be fibrous, cellulose stuff that you can digest. And then there will be, depending on the plant, there will be some things that are compatible that we can extract. So certain minerals, potassium, vitamin C, various B vitamins, so on. Some amino acids, protein, fats, etc. But that's still not optimal. It's like, you have a specific machine that designed to run on X fuel, and sort of components and parts, and then you try to crowbar other things that you've kind of picked up from over the years. That's kind of the way I kind of see it. It doesn't make sense, and so many of us are brainwashed on this. So if you can get over that, not only does a lot of guilt go away around, I didn't eat enough vegetables today, I'm a bad person. I used to buy broccoli and spinach and all this nonsense, and it would just rot in the fridge, and it would throw it out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm wasting so much money on this organic shit. It's like $3 for 3 ounces of this nonsense. You could buy like steak for that kind of money. And I would feel guilty. And then when I realized that there should be no guilt around not eating your vegetables and whatever, you're saving money that can be spent on better food, and a lot of this sort of guilt around it goes away. So that'll be like one tip now for folks listening. You don't need to eat more vegetables this year. That shouldn't be your resolution. I absolve you of any guilt around shitty ass vegetables.
The vegetarian contingent is gonna have some blowback on that. So
come at me.
So like you started to say, like so in your research and background, like what is best for the human body, like, you know what I mean? Like what is it that we need? And I know it could be different for everybody based on, genetics or, sensitivities or things like that, or, the stuff we've encountered in tests, like what some might have too much of or not enough of, it's the things like that. But in general, what are the things people should be focusing on, like, getting in?
I mean, like, honestly, man, like a lot of it is just the opposite of what we hear in the mainstream, So in the mainstream, they say, reduce red meat, ideally eliminate it, focus more on fish. I'd say the opposite is correct. I would rather clients eat more red meat. And I had one guy, CEO, very kind of busy, wealthy, all that stuff, and his doctor had gotten him off. He used to hunt and everything. He's back hunting now, but he used to hunt. The doctor got him off hunting, and he was eating just a different type of fish every day. I was like, that's terrible advice. And on top of that, taking omega-3s and kind of doing other kind of nonsense that was harmful. So really, they're telling us less saturated fats. But also, if you look at Harvard Medical Press, the American Heart Association, and I think the World Health Organization, the big bodies like that, they tell you to eat less saturated fat and like no more than 10% of your calories. But actually, they're very happy telling you that you should get 5 to 10% of your calories as omega-6, like from oils and nuts and seeds. So that's another thing that's like a huge sort of horrific sort of basically designed to make people develop disease a lot faster recommendation. So I would say I would actually increase my saturated fat from good high quality sources, very important. and I would reduce as much as possible sources of omega-6 fats. And as you know, Josh, like I actually personally, I don't eat any nuts. Well, I mean, here and there, like if I'm having like, if we're out and maybe like have cake or something or dessert, or my burger bun might have like seeds or nuts on it, whatever. Like I'm not like militant about it, but as a daily staple, like I think nuts and seeds. And the crazy thing is, if you go and look at the research, you will see all of this sort of data, quote unquote, data, because it's all associational nonsense, but all this data that says, but nuts and seeds are really associated with all these other benefits and stuff. Which, so it, like in the sort of, especially the epidemiological data, and I know you kind of have an understanding of these things, that's why kind of like we can talk about it. But in the epidemiological data, it's very easy to manipulate stuff. So vegetables are associated with better health outcomes. Red meat has been associated with, like, more colorectal cancers and various kind of poor health and kind of cardiovascular disease. But we know there's a lot of different biases in that research that could be messing with it. So I would say, not as a rule, I wouldn't like live by this rule, but a lot of what the mainstream recommends, I would almost be like, okay, let's figure out, is it the exact opposite? Because oftentimes it is. No, eat less, for example. And the other one, I'm sorry to kind of harp on here, but this one might blow your mind. But I think, dude, the whole thing around sugar is yet another psyop, man. I think sugar, and even granulated white sugar, I don't think it's that bad. And I wouldn't eat it every day and type thing. But if I'm in a pinch, like, I would rather have some sugar than like nuts and like oily stuff, like whatever nonsense, like chips, stuff like that. So I think they used sugar as the very convenient scapegoat, because our sugar consumption did increase over the last 150 years. That's true. Even though it's been around for centuries prior, it has increased now in the last century and a half. What they're doing is they are using sugar as the scapegoat, whilst the seed oils, because there's a lot of kind of, it's a government subsidized industry, there's a lot of interest, a lot of powerful people became very rich over the last 120, 30 years with that industry. There's a big lobby, so they want to protect that, and there's nobody's talking smack about seed oils in the mainstream. In fact, if you go find mouthpieces of pharma, I forget the names of some of these websites, some clients send me stuff once in a while, you will see that there's articles in there debunking all this seed oil sort of panic being, and there was one article somebody sent me that beef tallow is no health food, and actually soybean oil and all those other oils are actually much healthier than beef tallow. That's the kind of shit that's being sort of thrown at normies everywhere.
Yeah.
So we have to really, anytime there's a big hoopla about a specific recommendation, I think we have to think, is it the exact opposite? Because sometimes it can be, but more often than not, it's like there's a lot of nuance that we have to get in and understand in there.
Yeah, and obviously people's genetics and sensitivities come into play, and things have to get fine tuned and tweaked to them. But we just for this conversation, we could talk in general. But I mean, the way sugar is vilified now is how like butter was vilified or things like that. And if you think about it, if you look in the 50s, everyone was skinny and they were eating steaks, potatoes, butter, and you know what I mean, and whatever, like
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, instead of sugar now, there's high fructose corn syrup, or this and that, like you said, getting into the seed oils that are, are actually like really bad for you. And like a lot of that wasn't some of that just like runoff from like industrial processes, and they got to get rid of it. So they like package it as like, hey, we can use it for this. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
That's what's scary, like, and that's like, the fluoride in the toothpaste, it's like in the water supply, because it was an industrial runoff from a chemical process. And like, what are we going to do with all this fluoride? Well, let's sell it. You know what I mean? Like people, and that's not a conspiracy, man. Like you can look it up and it's all there. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of, things going on in the world. Obviously I have a conspiratorial slant to things sometimes, but like it's not bad to have a healthy skepticism of things, because there's a lot of stuff where it's just like, rich dudes being scumbags and like, you know, making more money off of like runoff. Like we did all this stuff and now we have all this extra stuff. Like, let's sell it off to the suckers basically. And, you know, but I mean, what I can attest to is that, before I started working with you, and I you know, I'm just putting it out there because I'm just putting it out there as a testament because, you know, people know me that like, you know, I you know, like my word is bond. Like, you know, I'm not going to tout anything that isn't real or doesn't work. Like before I was working with you, I was on like 3 to 4 energy drinks a day and doing a pre-workout and all this other stuff and, you know, eating out a lot more and stuff. I don't take I maybe have, I'm not going to say I have none, but maybe one. In a month, I might have 2 or 3 energy drinks in a month now. Instead of that, my daily intake is like now the month, right? Here and there, I grab one because, you know, doing long hours and whatever. I'm not doing a pre-workout anymore. You know what I mean? I get up and I do the honey and fruit, like you say, you know, and a little bit of protein before I go to the gym and then a protein shake. And then like I'm trying, you know, for the most part, when I'm doing more food prep and just eating like clean, grass-fed, local sourced from a local farm here, beef and either a rice or a potato or a sweet potato and you know, chicken, you know what I mean, and that as well. And I know sometimes you say not too much chicken, you know what I mean, but you know, not a lot, like once a week, or you know what I mean, like, but mostly beef. And I'm never hungry, and I literally in the last few months have dropped like 50 pounds. So it's like, and I feel good. So you know what I mean, for the most part. So you know,
it's amazing.
I'm a testament. Like I'm not blowing smoke. I got nothing. You know what I mean? If I can help someone, that's, you know what I mean, and feel better, and you know, that's why. That's half the reason why I got out of healthcare, man. Like, you know, like my background, you mentioned WHO. I worked WHO. I worked for CDC. I worked for like cancer centers and stuff. And I'm just like, this is all bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's an industry and it's money, dude. It's money and it's an industry. And it's
I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall during those job interviews. Did you have the beard when you were there?
No, maybe not as long.
You get the.
No, all right. I'm going to tell
this
you.
Guy looks like, get this guy in the president's cabinet.
I'll tell you one thing, right? This is a funny story based on that. Like when I was in school and I was going to work for World Health Organization, I like worked at headquarters in Switzerland.
Wow.
I was going to work for their traditional medicine program because I was into like working with like you know, traditional healers like shamans and, you know, medicine men, things like that. And so I was going out there to work for them in that when I was in my anthropology school, my program there. At that time, you know, I was still heavily tattooed. I had, you know, like now I got slick back hair and short hair, but like I had big dreadlocks.
Dude.
And they pulled no punches. I went there and they were like, "You're Josh Gagne?" Because this is like before internet. This is like late 90s, you know what I mean? So they never saw a picture of me. They were like in disbelief. They were like, "You're this guy?" Like, cause you know, on paper I look a different way, you know, to him. And you know, I worked in that program it's a whole long story. Maybe we'll get into it on your show sometime, but like but yeah, it was funny. But yeah, they were like, "Seriously?" Well, that was always the cause. Like when I was in grad school, I was like arrested multiple times for disorderly, and you know, we were always, you know, wild, just wild, stayed wild, you know what I mean? But just went to school.
Yeah.
But
Gross.
but yeah, man. So like I have a healthy distrust of these places because I worked there and I saw how they work and I saw the bureaucracy and the money machine behind things and the motivations behind things. And, you know, I'm not slighting any of these because there are people in there that are trying to do good and trying to do the right thing, but they're constrained by, you know, the bureaucracy that they're a part of. You know what I mean? Like, so you
just following orders.
Yeah. And like there's no one becomes a doctor because they're a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, you know, for the most part. Surgeons maybe, you know, I'm just kidding. Surgeons have God complex. No, and I'm just playing. Anyway, you know, I don't think there's many surgeons listening to this show, but, you know, I've worked with a bunch and no, they're good. You know, they have that's a different breed of doctor. But like no one's getting into primary care because they don't want to help people. But I feel like, you know, and we can, you know, though I don't even want to get into the whole conspiracy about the Rockefellers and, you know, how all this ties into medical education and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But people can start to look at that. There's some hints for you. There's some breadcrumbs you can start you use to Google. But when you look at it, like there was no better line in the sand than, what we just went through in the 2020 to 2025. Like, well, not 25, but I mean, yeah, it's still going on now. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like they were just following orders, and, there was some good doctors that were speaking out and like, hey, we really got to do more research, or we got to think about this different. They got silenced or they lost their license, like, really? That's part of the scientific process? You're going to pull someone's lines because they don't agree with the main narrative and, actually calling for scientific method, or we're going on a tirade here. You know what I mean? Sorry. But
Oh, it's a mafia, dude. That's the thing. It's a mafia.
it is a
Like I
mafia.
think a lot of people don't real. Oh, I'm not obviously not the crowd listening to this show, obviously.
Yeah.
But like I'm just talking about the wider world. Kind of, we sometimes forget the level of norminess in the majority of the population. So that's a mafia that is manipulating a lot of aspects of, and it's beyond just medical care. It's also the insurance. Like if you just look at the insurance industry that profits off of all of that as well, and then we start connecting the dots and who's involved, and then the FDA, and then what positions those guys have been or go to after being in there. So I think the most important thing is we have to, and this is what my talk will be at an Acapulco next month, is like we have to, like the way many of us kind of go on these rabbit holes and researching various kind of things around conspiracies and whatever tickles your fancy, moon landing, whatever. We have to have a similar sort of, at least in my view, I'm not saying we have to enforce it or anything, but like if we want to survive and thrive in the modern world, we have to really take a little bit of self-responsibility and not abdicate that to, it doesn't, like even myself, like I have some clients that they're like, most people that come to me are very easy to work with, but like I have people still that want the rationale. Why is this recommendation that I'm making? Why are carbs okay? Why is low carb bad? And I'm happy to provide evidence and kind of rationale and logic, because like if you can learn for yourself what works, what doesn't work, how to evaluate certain kind of recommendations and interventions, then you're never kind of left hoping that whoever is helping you or giving you information or holding your hand has good intentions for you, which you might get lucky. But as we saw in recent times, like if you just kind of abdicate that responsibility to your doctor, practitioner, politician, whatever, a lot of the time we're like lemmings being let off, off the cliff type thing.
Yeah. And, and it all, it's like the system's a big clusterfuck. You know what I mean? Like, when you start getting deep in the research, you see the insurance companies are pulling a lot of the strings on the medical groups, and then you look and you find the same companies own the insurance companies and they own the medical facilities, and it's like, all right, so we're just working in concert here, you know what I mean? Like to maximize profit and whatever. Or when you see things like pediatricians have incentives to give a certain amount of vaccines. And I'm not pro, I'm not anti-vaccines. Like I'm like, let's use common sense. Like when I was a kid, you got a few, like, and people are coming down on RFK because he just brought the schedule down from like 80 to 18. And I'm like,
yeah.
It gets out of control when they have things like vaccines, like they want to vaccinate your child with Hep B vaccine. It's like, is your kid fucking going out and having unprotected sex and doing party drugs like your 6-month-old? I don't think so. I hope not. Like, you know what I mean?
They can go out there and live on their own.
Yeah. So like, why would you need to give a kid a Hep B? Now, obviously there's certain ones that are good and then there's certain ones that are just, they're just there to make money. And that's always it. Just, you got to follow it. You got to question it and follow the money. That's why, you got to get second opinions on things. It's crazy. You got to be an advocate for yourself because no one's going to advocate for you, and you take control of your own health and take control of everything. So, we've been, with diet, what are some basic guidelines? Because there's so many myths about like, you need to fast, or you need to do low carb, or like you got to do this or that, or like avoid, like you said, avoid meat. Like I've cut out pretty much seed oil as much as I can. Like I use beef tallow at my house, you know what I mean, when I'm making a steak or whatever. I use cast iron pan. I'm not trying to use anything like any non-stick or any. You just go back to basics. That's how easy it is. But what's like the balance you think? Because I know you said like a certain amount of how much protein versus how much fat versus how much carbs. Because what you say is very common sense, but that goes against the grain of what I think is what being told in the world today. And
Yeah,
I don't think people know.
The big one of the and I'm gonna talk like I said to you, I'm speaking at an Acapulco next month, and I'm thinking about how to frame this to the conspiracy-minded listener
was it in
audience.
Acapulco or whatever, the conference there?
Yeah.
That sounds so awesome, man. I wish I had that. I wish I had it to go this year.
I would told you about it, but I know like you can't probably leave all your businesses and stuff.
I'm trying to get in a better place so I can go like next year. Like next year, I want to be able to have more freedom to travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about a lot about how would I kind of present this info. So the way I was kind of thinking is, let's say I was a lizard person. If I wanted to mess people's health up in a very kind of insidious way where very little can be pinned on me, well, how would I go about it? And dude, I'll tell you, I've been thinking about this kind of as I'm going to sleep, and I'm like just kind of getting ideas, and I'm walking my dog and I'm getting ideas. And to be honest with you, man, I wouldn't change too much of what is already happening. For example, let's say, kids are kind of, coming up in their teens or early 20s, super impressionable. What would I do? Well, of course, you have to give the illusion of choice to people. So I'm going to manipulate especially the girls, like a more sort of these more sensitive types that, we're killing the animals and torturing them. So it's really like you just need the vitamins, minerals, everything, the protein. It's all the same in the plants. In fact, evolution, of course, because everybody believes in evolution out there, evolutionarily, we all lived at the equator. We all came from Africa, and we only had, fruits and vegetables to eat all our, millions of years. So that crowd, I would like help them make the choice to go plant-based largely or full vegan if they're extra sort of, determined. On the other hand, I'm going to appeal to the guys in various ways. Like, the male ego is a lot more easy to kind of manipulate, that macho isms like, oh dude, we're hyper carnivores, all you gotta do is meat, we just ate meat for 2 million years, homo habilis or whatever, just ate meat. Even though, again, that's another religious belief that we have only evolutionary biology, which is based on like just some bunch of god knows think tanks decided this is how it happened. We have no idea what was going on in the world even 300 years ago. I don't know if you ever talked to folks about on the show about Tartaria and the mud floods. Like, we have no idea, dude.
Not yet. And the fact that's coming.
yeah. So we have yesterday I saw there's some I think on the Easter Island there was some kind of architectural sort of artifact. The way they were putting the blocks together, there was like a middle block joining them. There was the exact same in Egypt. So it's like we have no freaking idea what the hell's going on, or especially about our, distant history. But anyway, it's another very sort of a great way to get guys to just do more keto because it's ancestrally consistent and carnivore. So in both of those extremes, you would fuck your health up on a long enough timeline, and you have the illusion of choice here. If I could further mess you up, I would say I would get fasting into your head, dude. I would have everybody fast, whether it's for spiritual, religious purposes or to upregulate autophagy to improve your health and longevity, based on what? On rat studies. On rat studies, dude. With zero human evidence that fasting actually makes you healthier or that will make you live longer. There's zero evidence. In fact, kind of researching this for my next book in a bit more depth, one of the biggest sort of fasting, actually a few of the biggest fasting proponents have not circled back, but they've done a kind of a little bit of a 180 on the fasting. Walter Longo, I just saw a clip of him a few days ago. I kind of saved. I'm going to probably put them into a YouTube sort of little mini documentary or whatever. He used to talk about like fasting is this incredible thing, you regenerate your organs. Now he's like, they asked him, what do you think is the best intermittent fasting period? He's like, I think, about 12 hours is good. More of that, it would be stressful. Like, dude, like 12 hours is not even fasting. That's how most people eat, from 8 to 8, that type of thing. So, but anyway, I would get people to fast because that is a very, very insidious way to mess somebody's health up. And the thing about it is, especially with the longer fasts, um, you will actually get benefits in the interim, especially if the food supply, knowing how the food supply is and how bad many people's diet is. If you actually start taking breaks from the terrible diet, you actually will feel better from the inflammatory things in the diet. If your gut is messed up from stress and glyphosate, fasting paradoxically will actually give you a little bit of reprieve from that immune system dysregulation, the gut dysfunction. If you have endotoxin producing bacteria that have overgrown, a lot of that endotoxin production stops when you don't eat, because they need substrates to grow, divide, and multiply.
Yeah.
So you actually will give people sort of benefits, initial kind of symptom lowering, symptom improving benefits, but over time they just basically will degenerate their body and worsen their metabolism, and pretty much the body will eat itself. The bones, the joints, the skin, all the collagen in there will get used to make ketones, to make glucose. So that's another thing I would caution folks. If you're fasting, think about it. Could you get those same benefits without fasting? Because really, the fasting benefits are, like I mentioned, you eat less. First of all, if your diet is very crappy, you take a break from the crappy diet. If your diet is very um, it, plant heavy, that could be another thing driving gut problems, endotoxin production, and immune system dysregulation. So taking a break from a plant heavy diet will also give you ostensibly benefits. But then the other thing is the spiritual benefits. Well, dude, of course, fasting will bring you closer to God, to your creator, because you're slowly dying. It's like having a near-death experience in slow motion.
You just
know
take
what I
some
mean?
DMT,
So,
bro, and get to
like,
the same place.
yeah, dude, just smoke some bufo or take some shrooms, and you don't have to like degenerate yourself to connect with spirit.
So let me.
That's good.
I'm not trying to cut you off here, but I'm just trying to I want to see if I got this right, because fasting is a big thing and you still hear about it a lot. So fasting in the end is bad for you because it's degenerative to your body, but people think it's good because in the short term you do feel some effects, but it's not because of the fasting, it's because you're not putting garbage in your system.
So that's exactly it. And like, the thing about it is, so here's and you understand this. So think about it like this, right? Let's say you have people that fast, be it intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting, doesn't matter. Let's say you have these people that lose weight, right? And through that weight loss, their blood sugar regulation improves, their blood pressure reduces, they snore less at night, so they breathe more easily, so they sleep better. Their partner doesn't hate their guts as much because they don't snore as much. They might feel more confident with the weight loss. That could lead to a sort of virtuous cycle of then, I did all this fasting, I might as well eat better. Then you eat better, then it becomes a habit. So there's a lot of beneficial things happen. But the thing is, if you look at the research, a lot of fasting research is actually confounded by the weight loss. The weight loss is a confounding variable, because if the weight loss creates those benefits that the fasting group got, that means that we can get those benefits via other ways, eating better, more movement, maybe some calorie kind of lower calorie days to kind of create a bit of a deficit. There's a lot of ways. The cocaine diet, that's a great one. You meet a lot of cool people, hang out at parties. So there's a lot of different ways you can get the weight loss. So if the weight loss is driving the improvements, why do something that is degenerating your body, stressing the bejesus out of you? And because the thing is, you don't notice when you're losing bone mass. Like, I have clients with osteoporosis and stuff, and they're kind of in their 60s and sometimes 70s. Like, they don't notice it until way in their 60s, 70s. They go for a DEXA scan or something, or they have a fracture, which is even worse. So these degenerative that's the insidious nature of, and I'm not saying the researchers are bad people. They're just kind of, trying to make a name for themselves there. I'm saying is when, and this is probably my tinfoil hat sort of
Sure.
conspiracy mind, but I'm saying is when they figure out an intervention is actually not that good for people, or downright harmful, the algorithms can be, tweaked in a way where that it's algorithmically amplified. So if you go on YouTube right now on the homepage, type in fasting, any type of fasting, water, intermittent, autophagy, man, you will get videos with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million views. You will get thousands of people talking about fasting, and they're all parroting the same shit, bro. Like almost not a single person is coming in with original thought. It's autophagy, cellular cleanup. All the religions have fasting. It's the same sort of spiel, just a different guy or gal talking about it. Very, very little original thought. And it's because that's what I saw in the biohacking community back in 2018 when I went in there. Everybody listens to these these priests of the biohacking movement, and they're all those experts are doing the rounds on the podcast. So we are all parroting the same shit to our clients. Keto, there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate in the physiology textbooks. All of these party lines are being parroted by the majority of coaches, practitioners, trainers, health enthusiasts, and that's how we create these echo chambers where now it's like you are behind if you don't do this thing. Fasting, you are the one that's behind. You're the sort of the Luddite. When actually, I think with health, being maybe a late adopter is in this day and age. I think actually it might be a good idea to actually be a little bit more of a late adopter, rather, because for just as another example, the resveratrol. I don't know if you ever heard of the supplement, but basically it's like it's a phytoestrogen, dude. And I did an experiment after I found out that it actually, some people reported it messes with their hormones. So I actually I had a 500 milligram resveratrol with whatever other nonsense in it product. So I started taking that every other day or every third sort of night. I'll just take it once. And what I noticed within like maybe 10 days is that on the days when I would take resveratrol, the next day I would not have morning wood. I was like, this was quite a while ago now, but I would not have morning wood the next day. And if I skipped it for a day or two, it went back to normal. So I'm like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. The resveratrol is all the rage. It's all about activating the sirtuins, blah, blah. And then the anecdotal reports of it kind of messing with people's hormonal stuff coming out was like a bit of a wake-up call at yet another thing that I think it got. And the guy, not to like throw shade on the guy or anything, but that the guy is like a Harvard PhD.
Yeah.
And I just don't trust, like, to be honest. My initial stance on a lot of it now is don't trust, first verify, and then let's see how the biohackers do with it over the next few years, and maybe then we can kind of consider adding it and experimenting with it. And then once I've experimented with it, then now I don't just recommend things to clients. I usually, if to recommend a supplement, I usually have to take it for at least like months to sometimes even more before I actually can confidently recommend it to people. I think it's important to have that sort of sense of responsibility, because it's so easy just to parrot lines you heard from Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, and whatnot, and or kind of these big doctors are doing the podcast rounds. It's so easy to parrot that stuff, but a lot of them are circling back. Big names in the that were kind of talking about fasting, 8-10 years ago, completely stopped fasting, completely.
So a question is, I was listening to something just the other day, and they were talking a lot about fasting and like doing like kind of like extreme fastings, like no water, no food, and like at a certain point, it starts cleaning up. You talking about cellular cleanup, and it'll attack cancer cells, and then 7 days in or 5 days in, you're gonna release millions of stem cells and all that. Like, what's your response to that? And because I'm sure there's going to be pushback, because obviously these things, and I'm not putting all this out to challenge anybody, but like, you know, people adopt these things and take it in like gospel. So like, you know, how what do you like, what's really going on there?
So
You know what I mean?
so just I'll tell you, man, like I was gonna do my next book was gonna be How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 2. That's kind of I was planning to do it, but
Oh, and by the way, I got this here. This is Christian's book. Go pick that up on Amazon. This is it's got good information in it. It's like how to actually live longer. So he's talking about part 2. Yeah.
Appreciate it, brother. But yeah, so I was gonna do volume 2. I've been kind of meaning to do it for like quite a while now, and I have the research ready. It's just about like just getting stuck in for a few months. But anyway, just the fasting thing is it just keeps coming up. I don't know why. And I had a chapter in the previous book about it, but like I started like digging deeper into the research since kind of early December, and now I'm kind of back into it in the new year. And man, I tell you, like the crazy thing with the fasting research it's just so underwhelming. It's so bad, dude. It's so bad. I don't understand. Like, I mean, I understand why they're pushing it. They want to push this research because it's an interesting topic, but like all the research so far that comes out, unless you're just looking at a very sort of conventional medicine retarded way of improving cardiometabolic markers. That's kind of the always, not always, but a lot of time it's just the goal. Improving cardiometabolic. It's like, dude, like those guys and gals, they think if the fasting will lower your your cholesterol and whatnot, that you're gonna that's like that's a good result, that's an improvement. But like these are such transient things, and actually it's not even it's not even reproducible every time. Some studies show that actually the cholesterol actually increases. They say it worsens those markers. Cholesterol increasing does not mean it's you're worse off or anything. And then the some studies that look from the insulin resistance perspective, they actually find that after the fast, people are actually more insulin resistant. And then you have other guys that saying that it lowers inflammation. But I have studies showing that actually during the fast, your inflammation increases, like based on things like C-reactive protein, interleukin-6. And then there was another study which was done in like on the mean age was like almost 30 young men, and that study showed that actually there was an increase in oxidative stress based on actually the marker on your test, the metabolomics, that lipid peroxidation marker on the test. That's a T-bars, thiobarbituric acid reactive. So I believe it was the same marker that they used. So that marker increased during the fast, which means lipid peroxidation is occurring. And what people don't know, and that's why I need to write the book, is especially if someone is fasting for the weight loss, what you actually don't want, and that's why with you and with all clients where fat loss is part of the goals that the client has, we always want to not just tweak calories and kind of increase fat loss, because that's actually pretty easy. We want to lay the foundation in terms of like detoxification, gut function, liver function, stress, all these things, because what a lot of people don't know is actually our fatty tissue is a repository for various chemicals known as persistent organic pollutants. So things like from organochlorines to like various even from gasoline combustion. There's certain things that are lipophilic, so they have an affinity to our fatty tissue. So if you just start rapidly losing weight, all of a sudden you're releasing not just a ton of these POPs, persistent organic pollutants, but also a lot of polyunsaturated fats, because most people, especially in the US, that have a little bit of like a excess weight sort of issue, a lot of that fat contains a lot of omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, and those are very unstable. So if you just like willy-nilly just open the floodgates, you got toxins now your liver's dealing with, and then it's also dealing with all these PUFAs that can be turned into inflammatory molecules, mediators like eicosanoids, prostaglandins. They can also spontaneously peroxidize whilst they're circulating in your body. They can damage, your vascular, your blood vessel lining, your organs. So and then the byproducts of that damage, these byproducts, some of them can cross the blood-brain barrier, damage neurons, kind of. So like the whole thing about fasting for longevity, no evidence. The whole thing about autophagy, there's actually, like, if you look at the research, starvation upregulates the overall bulk autophagy, where everything is broken down indiscriminately. That's not the selective autophagy that people want, because like the idea is you would just break down everything that's like not working optimally. But if you're starving, your body is not like, I need to like, imagine you lose your job, your source of income, and like, I need to come home and I'm gonna renovate the whole house. No, you're like, shit, I need to like Netflix, massages, like dinners out, everything stops. So the body shuts down the nice to have functions, and then a lot of just cellular, like a lot of tissue is just degenerated to turn it into glucose and sometimes ketones, depending on the thing. And so that's what happens, dude. Meanwhile, all this fat that's being released, damaging the body, the metabolism is lowered. So like the whole thing is a pipe dream that's built on a house of cards of animal research that is really, really badly done. Because look, for example, some of the initial research on yeasts, like how can you like extrapolate yeast studies to freaking mammals, dude? And then there was one in nematodes, C. elegans, where it actually turns out that if you starve that little nematode, it actually goes into like somewhat like a suspended state akin to like a hibernation. So like it can live twice as long, but like, dude, like we're not hibernating animals. And then rats, and then the rats that eat this trash, these pellets. Like imagine you take this animals being poisoned with like soybean oil and ground up fish guts and heads and all this like shit, all this like the lab chow. So imagine, just imagine it eats less poison. You give it less poison. You fasted. Well, maybe that's why they're actually living longer, and they're less unhealthy, because you're giving the animal is eating less poison. So the animal research is basically not enough for us to say we should do this, and then the human data probably will not have for decades if we ever have it at all. So I would be very careful.
Yeah, so it's better just to clean up your diet than to fast. One of the other big things is carbs, and there's like a big, what's going on with carbs, and that was honestly one of the biggest things I had to get over with you is like when I first started working with you, is like it reincorporating, because I was like, oh man, I'm supposed to eat rice, or I'm supposed to have a potato, what's your take on carbs, and like what's like a good healthy amount of carb versus like what's bad carbs and stuff, like.
Yeah. So actually, this reminds me earlier. I wanted to make the point. So when I was telling about if I was a lizard person, how I'd mess younger people up, is actually when you look at it, if all the guys that you kind of convince to not eat fruit and carbs and stuff like that. So we actually we know that low carb diets actually increase cortisol, and no matter what way you figure out to increase somebody's cortisol, their testosterone basically is lower. They're almost like a seesaw. If cortisol is high, testosterone is lowered. Even if there was some of the research is in the book. Like if you inject someone with hydrocortisone, that will lower their T. If you inject them with insulin, which clears the bloodstream of glucose, which then requires cortisol to come in and raise the blood sugar, that also lowers their testosterone. And by the way, intermittent fasting studies, even after 4 weeks, testosterone is lowered. And then 2 months it's lowered, and then up to 11 months they've done a few studies on that. So in all those cases, and in some cases like 20-25% reduction after 8 weeks, in young healthy men, no less. It's young, college, sort of broke college kids do a lot of these studies.
Yeah. I was there. I used to give blood twice a week. I would give plasma. Yeah,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so the other thing, so if I can get a bunch of 20-something guys to start doing keto, carnivore, like and brainwash them that fructose is a poison like alcohol. Well, the sperm apparently. This is kind of recently, I figured I learned this. The sperm use fructose for motility. And like a lot of the cells in the testes, they actually use glucose, the Leydig cells. And so we actually, like, in many senses, it seems like eating a lot of fructose and like fruit and things like honey and stuff, it's almost like a signal. It's summertime. There's abundance. It's okay now to produce, because you have you eat excess from what just your base needs. So the body's like, it's actually okay to have a libido, want to go and bang some cave chicks and procreate here. Things are safe. Times are good. Times is not tough. So it's like, if you remove that, if you remove carbohydrates from a person and you think about it, so the brain needs maybe 100, 120 grams a day of glucose. The red blood cells need 30 grams. The kidneys need some. And there's a lot of other, like the cells in the eyes. And I have clients that have done keto, low carb for a while, that their eyesight deteriorates, So the body, if you remove a lot of this carbohydrate source, the body will produce some. It will kind of like reduce some processes that are nice to have. So the brain will get its share, the nervous system will get its share, but just like it down regulates a lot of kind of nice to have things. Like, so that's kind of the rationale why, even though you can produce glucose in the body, it's not a sufficient. It just and some of the keto people will say there's no, like, glucose is non-essential, but what they don't probably understand is glucose, it's nutritionally non-essential, but it doesn't mean it's physiologically non-essential, which means, yeah, you can produce it if you have to, but if you don't have it, you're dead. It's similar with water, dude. Actually, you can make water from fat, metabolic water in the body. So technically water is nutritionally non-essential, but we know that, if you get sufficiently dehydrated, you're screwed, you're dead. So that's the thing. And especially, this is especially bad because at least if you go straight all the way into ketosis, and now when you're producing ketones, a good portion of sort of what the brain was going to use glucose wise can be satisfied by ketones. But you never, like, no matter how deep into ketosis you get, whether that's through fasting, starvation, or the diet, no matter how deep in ketosis you are, you will always be producing glucose. Something like, I think like 70%, 60, 70% is the maximum that ketones can provide. So you're always like doing that. You're always degenerating something. Or at best, you're turning the protein that you eat from the diet, the keto diet, into glucose, But that's a very bad deal, because 100 grams of protein is roughly going to get turned into 50 grams of glucose. And to get 100 grams of protein from meat, you have to eat probably, I don't know, at least like maybe 3/4 of a pound of steak, So it's a lot of wasted high quality protein. So there's so many problems with this long term. Now, short term, especially if you're young and healthy, short term, it's fine to mess around, experiment with things. But we're talking about, like you're, in your 50s. Like people that come to me, sometimes they're older, 60s, and sometimes 70s. We have to do what's optimal for the human for a lifetime, not just like what's the current fad, Atkins, keto, whatever, low fat. We have to do what's right, something you can do on a daily basis that's easy enough to do, that will support your health for the next 50 years, not until Thanksgiving came and I got off keto and then I ballooned, all that weight came right back on in 3 months. Like that shit. When you're our age, 40 plus, like, you don't have time for this nonsense. You just need to find something that works, keep stress low in terms of like your cortisol and stuff like that, and then just get used to that, and then it gets a lot easier, and then just kind of go and live your life. Because most people, we don't have time to like spend 12 hours a day figuring out what is optimal and lab testing, like all the time. And you just need to figure out, here's the system, this works, do this will support you. This will get you 80, 90% of the way there. And then the rest, supplements can help with that. And then you have a little bit of leeway then. Not everybody, like, and just to answer your question, what carbs are good, what carbs are bad, really anything that's like a fruit, honey, like that kind of source, maple syrup, I think, white rice that has no fiber or very little fiber, potatoes, these are all fine. And really, the shitty carbs is just anything that people actually consider carbs, which is pizza. Well, yeah, breads and grain, anything grain based, anything with a lot of seeds, no matter the seeds, lentils, all this stuff. I haven't eaten lentils in years. Beans almost never, unless we have, like, my wife sometimes makes, fajitas, tacos. Like, I'll have it once in a while, and then I'm farting half the day later that day. So the body tells us. Just as a quick example, I had one dude. he signed up with me maybe I guess October, and he was eating 60 to 70% of his diet was vegetables. Really cool guy. He's joining like a lot of the calls. He's very active on the calls, like twice a week at least, sometimes 3 times a week he's coming. And I told him, get all this shit out of your diet, bro.
Yeah.
He's like 73, so I don't talk to him like that. So anyway, didn't hear anything about the bloating and the gas and the digestive problems very, very quickly. Then we had other stuff like sleep and energy, but everything started improving. And then, I don't know, about a month ago, he told me, "Oh man, Chris, a few days ago, I had some broccoli." I'm like, "That's fine. I'm not gonna spank you or anything. How was it?" He's like, "It was horrible. It was horrible." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is." Because imagine we have brainwashed ourselves to like raw spinach and broccoli. It's you just have to eat. Honestly, if your grandmother had access to it, like great grandmother, if she had access to it, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
It's probably okay. So honey, fruits. I know they had bread and they had like things that were kind of processed, and they had like white sugar. But again, like we've lived with grains, if we believe all this history, for like 10,000 years, 12,000 years. So people did not have all these health problems, and sugar's been around for like hundreds of years. So these health problems really started when the oils and all these chemicals in the food supply entered in the last 120, 30 years. So it's even like having some bread from a non-glyphosate sort of organic source once in a while should be okay. If everything else is dialed in, you should be okay with some bread and some sugar and wine and whatever. Like we still want to live, but if you got to get those 95% right, and then the last 5% you do whatever you want. If you like a little bit of shots of Jägermeister and lines of Coke off a dirty toilet seat at the local bar on a Saturday night, you do you. That's what I always tell people.
That's gonna be the quote, bud. That's gonna be the quote that's gonna be the thing that goes viral out of
the hook.
How to live longer and how to live. I don't know. But well, on that note, man, this has been a great episode. I'm looking at the time and being cognizant. I know you got a 1 o'clock call here, so I'm. Let's wrap it up. Where can people find you? And if they want to learn more, or I know you have like a like people can sign up and spend a little get a little coaching call from you and get a little time with you and stuff. Like, where can people find you? And obviously your book's on Amazon, but if they want to get in touch with you directly or are interested in working with you or seeing if they'll even be a good fit, how can they reach out?
Yeah, appreciate it. Again, I had a lot of fun with you, brother. So just the folks can go to livelongerformula.com. They have a free kind of masterclass there. Get on my mailing list. You can shoot me an email anytime. There's a way to book a free call with me if you need the help. Otherwise, the book is on Amazon. Type my name in to your podcast player and my podcast will come up, and there's some good info there. And we're gonna have you on the podcast maybe in sometime in February. So I think folks might want to tune in for that.
Absolutely. And we had talked about too maybe doing like an affiliate program. So if you are interested in working with Christian, we'll at some point we're gonna unveil a promo code where you can get a little bit of way to do that.
I'll give you the link, but like if folks just mention your name or the podcast, I'll look after them. So
absolutely.
Know that you'll be looked after.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have everything in the show notes. So if you're driving right now, you don't have to pull over and write things down. We'll everything will be in the show notes and linked up, so you can get in touch with Christian. He's a wealth of knowledge, and like I said, I'm in the program, and I waited to have him on till I knew this was like, I knew it was legit right off the rip, just by the approach. But like, it's absolutely worked for me, and it literally was a little overwhelming at first, right? Because there's a lot coming at you, and it challenges a lot of the beliefs and a lot of the programming that's been.
You did a lot of labs as well.
Yeah,
at the same time as well.
You got to do the labs, and then the answers are right there, man. They're right in front of you, and it's lab work. It's like this lab work. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but this should be, every one of your primaries should be doing this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? If they were really concerned with your health, and I'm not saying that they're not, but you know what I mean? If the health system was really concerned with you being healthy, they'd focus more on prevention and doing this type of lab work rather than just dealing with symptoms after the fact. And it's that simple,
So true.
man. But dude, I appreciate it. I am going to talk to you soon, and I gotta go. I gotta go to the studio and record vocals, so I'm not going to be able to jump on the
Good
call
luck.
today.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be back on the calls, man. And like I know I was pretty heavy on them, and then like I've been out the last couple, but I've still been doing it, man. Like I said, these changes are just ingrained now, and it's just part of life, and it
becomes habit. That's it.
It's habit,
That's
and it's easy, man. Like, you know, I lost 50 pounds. I don't think I was hungry once in the last 3 months. You know what I mean? Like it just
Yeah, and so many people eat more.
Yeah.
Because of keto. The reason
I've had to
keto
force
works,
myself. And the thing, I've had to force myself to eat some protein stuff like before bed or something. And I'm like, this is like this is what goes against what everyone's telling you. But then I'm sleeping better. You know what I mean? And
Exactly, dude.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's wild, dude.
And I'll tell you, like, not one person so far I've worked, well, I mean, a couple, but let's say from the last 200 people I've worked with, maybe 1%, 3 people maybe were eating too much. Most people actually eat very little. That's what carnivore, low carb, and keto do, is all that fat, and usually the protein helps, is just you feel satiated. So especially initially, you just eat less. Spontaneously, you eat less, and then you remove the grains and the trash from the diet. So really the magic of carnivore and keto is you eat cleaner and you eat less calories. But here's the thing, that only works for a little while, and then then you paint yourself into a metabolic corner, and then shit happens. So the idea is we want to avoid the metabolism, the body going into this kind of stress mode, as I call it in the book.
Yeah.
We want to give it signals of abundance, so it becomes almost wasteful. Like a lot of the energy you produce, the way we eat, it's just given off as heat. But that's really beneficial, because how many people with hypothyroidism come to me with cold hands? They're always cold. I'm like, well, we will change that sooner or later, you know?
Yeah. And it just takes a little bit of time. And for all the Patreon subscribers, I have an extra copy of this book. I'm going to be giving it away to one of the Patreons. So if you haven't already signed up, go to patreon.com/bigtruth. Check out my man Christian. I'm going to have all the links in the show notes. And yeah, man, this was a killer episode, dude. I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we get some people thinking about things and really ready to get healthy in 2026, man. Because this year I'm going hard in the field, dude. With like I've already straightened out. Like I'm going hard business wise, going hard health wise, and you know, and you've been a big help with that, man. And so I appreciate it, and I can't thank you enough. All right, and that wraps it up for today. Hopefully you learned something. There's a lot more out there. Follow the links in the show notes to learn more. Make sure you subscribe to the new updated revamped YouTube channel at youtube.com/thebigtruthpodcast. And follow the Big Truth Redacted on Instagram. YouTube has both, so it's totally reset up as just the Big Truth channel. It has the podcast stuff, redacted stuff, clips, and things like that. So it's a work in progress, but it's definitely all revamped. So give it a follow. For more information on the podcast, bigtruthpodcast.com. Go to chopperhead.com for any motorcycle related stuff, and at tattooflashcollective.com if you need any artwork. That's about it. And until next time, keep it locked.